Maduro hasn't even gotten his trial yet Trump is already moving on to the next country that he would like to do something with, specifically or specifically Denmark, or but we are talking about Greenland, which is an autonomous region as part of the Crown of Denmark, as many other territories of Denmark are, or even of European nations, or sort of overseas territories. Trump has been pushing towards talking. I mean, we could summarize saying things like not putting military action off the table, saying that Greenland is important to the national security of the US, that Denmark is unable to protect it. In today's episode, we'll try to spend first 10-15 minutes of taking, let's say, giving the benefit of the doubt to the national security argument, especially since that is an argument we have used, for example, with Venezuela or Iran. So it's not like we are coming from this from some international leftist, no war is good, America should never do anything. Rather coming from international or coming from the the self-interested foreign policy from the United States and America's role in the world and sort of what is beneficial to America. And we'll cover it from that angle. Welcome to the Daily Objective. Joining me today is James Valiant. And sir, I'll take a quote from Trump. He said, "The United States needs Greenland for the purpose of national security. It is vital for the Golden Dome that we are building. NATO should be leading the way for us to get it. If we don't, Russia or China will, and that is not going to happen." The last part was in caps lock. What we are asking are, or this is a separate quote. So this was Trump. So I mean, James, I think national security, while I don't think it's like an infinite argument that gives, like, Russia is saying they're invading Ukraine for national security reasons, right? So that has to be, we live in objective reality. There is an actual thing called national security for the US and things that can threaten it. Russian involvement in Venezuela or Iranian involvement in Venezuela, going back to Cold War, Russian involvement with Cuba, right? All of these are threats to national security of America. They don't necessarily mean America needs to go after every single country that is a national security. Technically, every single country that is independent and isn't like a puppet of the US is a potential national security threat, right? Because they could theoretically do something. But that's not generally the reason we judge it by. But let's take a look at, is Greenland a national security threat if America isn't owning all of it? Because that is the main argument.
Right. Let's put taking over and owning aside for a second. And you wanted me to argue the point kind of from the perspective of Trump's perspective. And I can, I guess, hypothetically do that for a minute with you. I'm not, in theory, opposed to territorial expansion of a free nation. And I can't engage in moral equivalency between the United States and, say, China, North Korea, Iran. Here we see countries that really do oppress their people in a way that is radically different. Whatever Trump's authoritarian tendencies, it's still hard to draw a moral comparison between America and a dictatorship. And I could tell you that, strategically speaking, that Greenland's position in the North Atlantic makes it critical for several reasons. It's the sea lane between Russia and the West in entering the Atlantic Ocean. More than that, if there were a nuclear attack on the United States, Russia's nukes would be flying over. Many of them, the path leads straight over Greenland. And so, like Alaska, they're strategically positioned in such a way as they're an important bulwark against our security against Russia. Mr. Vladimir Putin, who's not a nice guy. So, and they do have strategic minerals that are important to America and the West generally in terms of the new technologies and defense things. So it is strategically important. But you know something? Okay, now that I've said that, Daniel, said all that, let's put that aside and say, is Trump behaving in a way that is best for American security and more generally best for the West security?
Well, I guess before we go there,
Okay,
I can expand this argument a little bit more. First, I don't know if you've seen this stand up from uh, Shane Gillis, but he was like, you know the story about Leif Erikson and how he discovered Greenland and Iceland, and he gave the name Greenland to like attract
Greenland,
migration, and
great sales pitch, right?
yeah, and Shane Gillis was like, maybe that trick from like 1,000 years ago worked on Trump. He just looks at the map, green, and he well, I have
Green
to have
versus
the
ice. Where do
yeah.
you want to go, right? Whereas,
Uh,
of course, Greenland is more ice than Iceland, so and
uh,
Iceland's more green than Greenland, so maybe it was a nice sales trick.
yeah, it still works apparently. But even that regard, when Trump like talks about the national security reasons, right?
Right.
And I can take that argument. That Greenland can like be a problem, but here is the thing. The current American foreign policy isn't targeting Russian threat or Chinese threat. We are not fighting against Russia in Ukraine, right? Or we are not trying to help to like, if we are talking about reducing the national security threat of Russia, the quickest and best way would be to do something with Ukraine to help them, or to embolden the Far East countries, right? South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. Like make freer trade with those countries, make more alliances with those countries. But instead, we're tariffing Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea because Trump is supposedly wants to put tariffs on countries that trade with Iran, which also includes, unfortunately, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, instead of like trying to come up with a deal. He is putting tariffs on European allies instead of trying to integrate the economies together with Ukraine to fight against Russia. So, here is the thing, like with every single of issues that Trump's bring up, you can take it as a single thing, but once you expand it to his whole policy, it makes no sense. Because if Russia and China are truly a threat in Trump's eyes, he's not acting like it unless it's with Greenland.
Imagine someone saying, look, Poland is critical to Western security. Well, I guess America should take over Poland. If Ukraine is important to world security and keeping Russia at bay, why not? Zelensky, get out of the way. Just sew another star on the flag, Betsy Ross. We're going to take over Ukraine. Or if China's a problem, why don't we just take over Taiwan? That's not the way we normally approach it, and I don't think that's in America's best interest at all. Even even if you could get that kind of argument, but then let's also take on the issue of the way Mr. Trump is handling this, tariffs that you brought up. Look, for economic purposes, tariffs are suicidal, stupid, immoral policy. Okay, tariffs are wrong in general. Now, can you make an argument about an enemy country? Okay, leave that aside. Tariffs on our main trading partners who are not dictatorships, who are productive nations, just makes no sense. To use tariffs to coerce Denmark into surrendering territory is absolutely coercive, really counterproductive and insane in my view. To not taking military action off the table, it seems to me, is just completely unjustified. We can't put boots on the ground in Iran, but we can't take boots on the ground in Greenland off the table. That's just insane right there. And not only is there the military saber rattling, we can't take military action off the table. Not only is he using tariffs in an improper, coercive way, then there's his letter to the Norwegian prime minister, which is utterly unhinged. I have to say, it's kind of out of the old, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the old movie from the 1960s, a Cold War movie called Dr. Strangelove. where the U.S. military guy goes insane and starts a nuclear war with what was then the Soviet Union. It's reached.
Is that the one where he like rides like a cowboy a nuclear bomb? Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, slim pickings on the nuclear missile, but also the crazy military leader who's concerned about communist infiltration into our precious bodily fluids. So it's just, what does he say to the Norwegian prime minister, in effect? Because you didn't give me the Nobel Peace Prize, because gosh, I've settled conflicts all over the world, at least 8 different conflicts. I should have got it. Well, first of all, why do you want this stupid prize? Obama got it for nothing. They gave it to Mao Zedong. Who the hell would ever want? He's elevating this stupid prize above it. Besides, it's a private organization, independent from the government organization that gives the prize. But now let's go deeper. He says, because I didn't get the prize, I'm less inclined to be pro-peace. Now, he qualifies that a little bit. Yes, peace will be a concern.
Well, let's go. I just want to bring one thing, and let's go to the letter. We'll just finish this national security thing.
Yeah.
Let's just cover. I don't. Do you know what China debt trap is as a foreign policy that China has been using? So yeah, something that China has been doing with a lot of African countries or countries in Oceania. I think particularly Sri Lanka is one that comes to mind. Is they do some type of investment where they let them borrow money to build an airport or a normal port or something like that, and they do like crazy interest rate, and basically that country like goes into like a debt spiral because they cannot pay it back. Then China has a like a leverage that they can use on that country to get a military base, get some sort of like sanction relief, get some influence over that country. And that is something that China has been doing successfully and has potentially tried to do in Greenland, actually. But here is the thing, right? It failed precisely because America has influence over Greenland. This has been tried in 2016, 2018, 2019, and 2021. One of those was under Obama. Three of those were under Trump. So Trump himself, during Trump 1, has actually stopped this already. And since 2021, China hasn't been trying that again because they were completely shut down. So during the whole Biden administration, he didn't even have a choice over if China would do something in Greenland because it was already agreed that basically China isn't able to get a foothold in Greenland. Not to mention that Denmark, because when China does it, they usually do it with countries with already bad finances. Greenland pretty much has infinite money in terms of like if they ever like go into debt, they'll get a bailout from the Kingdom of Denmark. There is actually a fund already set up to potentially like bail out Greenland if it ever is. Not to mention America, since America already has a military base in Greenland, has a lot of say over, and that base is a treaty that was made. So that base isn't even like necessarily part of NATO. It's a specific treaty between Denmark and America to have that base. And like I said, because of that, USA actually has a lot to say when it comes to investments coming into Greenland or any other foreign country, especially outside of NATO, would try to say. Not to mention, we don't allow enemy countries to build foreign military bases in NATO countries. America would never allow that. No NATO ally would ever allow that.
America has a military presence in the United Kingdom, in Germany, in Poland. If it is a matter of protecting it from a literal takeover, obviously we can make an arrangement with Danes over maybe having a bigger military presence there so that they won't literally militarily get taken over. If it's an economic issue, surely Denmark and the United States can take steps in that direction to protect Greenland from being, in effect, economically an aspect of the problem. And as you say, there already are such strategies there. So it doesn't make any sense to me whatever that we need to have, as a United States territory, Greenland in order to protect that place from Russia and China. We can increase our military presence there. This is a job for the diplomats. This is not a job for saber rattling, coercion, or crazy threats. It's totally the wrong way to approach. I mean, Denmark is not a dictatorship, much less an aggressive dictatorship. Say, let's contrast that, as you point out, with Iran and China. Those are significant threats because they threaten their neighbors, and they are real dictatorships that slaughter their own people, as we can see in recent days. So there's a radical difference, it seems to me. That's why I say, he's not willing to take boots off the ground in Greenland, but he is in Iran. Now, how much sense does that make logically? So if it's a matter of securing Denmark, then surely we can come to a different arrangement for Denmark security. If it's a matter of the economics, the minerals there that we want, surely that's an economic matter. Let's open up free trade with Denmark and Greenland rather than threatening tariffs. It seems to me that's kind of counterproductive. What we then want is complete free trade with the Kingdom of Denmark. What we want then is, trade access. Will you give American companies access to this to develop it? Because, okay, a greater U.S. presence might secure it, and that surely would be enough to scare off Russia and China. So, but this approach of not taking the military option off the table, as he has so recklessly done, in my view, and using tariffs in this coercive manner is certainly wrong. I don't like tariffs in general, okay? But to do so, to use tariffs, one, I guess, could make an argument, and one I don't buy, but one could make an argument that, okay, we want to get them to take their tariffs down, so we'll use tariffs to get their tariffs down. Okay, that's really not logical in my mind, but at least you could see there's sort of an argument there. To use tariffs to coerce an allied nation to give up territory is utterly immoral, in my view. It's a coercive threat, just like his not taking the military off the table. It's a coercive threat against a peaceful, non-dictator ally. How does that make any sense whatever, Daniel? I mean, I can't even wrap my head around the, quote, logic here, right?
Well, I want to say a little bit more, but first we have a super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. A super chat from Equal to Reality. Thank you so much. He says, am I the only one who hopes that no country's nuclear deterrents remain operational, given that many date back 50 to 70 years? I think generally America has kept them safe and up to date. I think Russia, I wouldn't be surprised if Russia's not all of them are operational. But again, even one nuclear weapon is a deterrent. I mean,
one nuke can ruin your whole day. Yeah, right.
Although I think even one, because I'm not sure to what extent can you even sort of shoot down a nuclear weapon.
Weapons have made the idea of all-out war today absolutely terrifying. On the other hand, we cannot think of the threat from Russia and China with nuclear weapons in a way that paralyzes our ability to defend our interests abroad.
Not to mention, nuclear deterrent should work both ways. Nuclear deterrent doesn't mean that Russia can invade us, and for some reason we cannot attack them. So nuclear deterrent. So in a sense, big nuclear deterrent has actually been failing because Russia is emboldened enough to take action in Ukraine, for example. If the nuclear deterrent worked, they would have never done something like that. So the fact is, nuclear deterrent has been failing in a bit that, and I think, understandably, I don't think Putin or Xi Jinping think that the West would use nuclear weapon first. And I think that's a problem. I hope it never happens, but I think they should believe that it's a threat that could happen.
Right. We hear Putin using nukes in his saber rattling over Ukraine. Well, why don't we respond, right? In kind, at least putting the fear of God into them that we might use nuclear weapons. It's reaching a point where you almost could make an argument that America should use a tactical nuclear weapon in a modest way just to make the point. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm some crazy Dr. Strangelove person either, but the fact is the deterrence should work both ways, shouldn't it? In any case, I just think that Trump's approach to this is, I saw the hilarious meme the other day. An old-fashioned mother is preparing dinner, and above the thing it says, "No, you may not have your Greenland yet. You haven't finished your Venezuela." And so Trump is spreading American defenses so thin, it seems to me, although we do probably have the best, Navy and, military in the world. But nonetheless, Trump is spreading things thin. So, for example, he has to send an aircraft carrier group to Iran to make good on his promises, if he's going to make good on his promises to help the Iranian people, saying, help is on the way. They'll really get it if they keep killing their own people. So if he's going to draw a bright line about Iran and then not follow it up, I mean, think about it. We've got a huge chunk of our Navy off the coast of Venezuela right now. So I would also urge Mr. Trump to think smart. We do not have infinite military resources, however powerful they are.
Yeah, not to mention the inaction in Iran can be actually caused by having the fleet in Venezuela instead of having it be ready against Iran, which is an actual enemy. Not to mention having also some fleet ready for when China does something in Taiwan. We have to be ready for that as well.
Where is he taking the aircraft carrier group from? This China Sea. So we're moving from the area of China to Iran because why? A huge chunk of our forward Navy. Now it's true, there's no more terrifying thing than a US aircraft carrier group, right? We've demonstrated how that can take out whole governments. But the point is that we're being spread thin. To protect Taiwan is now jeopardized because if we keep doing military actions, and we're not serious and resolve that action quickly, that also is a critical factor in my mind.
We have a super chat from Shosbot. Thank you so much. He says, this quote, "I think it's unfair to condemn the whole program because of a single slip up." This is from General Turgidson from Dr. Strangelove.
A single slip up with nuclear weapons. Yeah.
I often, he also finished, "I often think of this line when I hear about consequences from stupid government policy."
Indeed, indeed.
And
indeed.
I wanna cover. I see a bunch of criticism in the chat, so I wanna cover it. First, somebody says, "Why shouldn't the USA expand?" So we've already said there's nothing
I am not
inherently wrong.
opposed to U.S. territorial expansion. I mean,
But again, this is not
part of the United States, I think, and we're the good guys in most cases. Well, I traditionally thought that we were the good guys in most cases. So,
but again, this is not a Louisiana purchase. This is not Alaska purchase. This is not westward expansion.
Nor is it helping the Texas and California rebels who tried to get their independence from Mexico, which was a dictatorship at the time. Totally different contexts. Totally. Yeah. I mean, you purchase a Hawaii, purchase Alaska, purchase the whole Louisiana territory from Napoleon. Okay, that was a negotiated purchase. And surely the population of Greenland is not so large that we couldn't make a financial offer to all of them to persuade them to, have us be there. And if they were voluntarily willing to become Americans, you negotiate. This is a job, as I say, for diplomats, not for threatening military action or using tariffs in a coercive way.
Yeah, and somebody said we are not making any good practical arguments. So, I mean, again, we have to talk about what should the United States stand for. First of all, and I think one of the most important things, the Congress hasn't been discussed about any of this. It hasn't been talked about when it comes to Venezuela. It hasn't been talked about even when it comes to targeting the Venezuelan ships that supposedly are smuggling things. Congress has been bypassed in so many ways already that I think this should be a reason enough for opposing this. The fact that Trump is threatening a military action without congressional approval, especially in this scenario where there is no imminent threat. It's not like something's, yeah.
Strictly speaking, this is not objectivism, because objectivism supports the Constitution in general, but constitutional interpretation can vary. That's a matter of philosophy of law, but it should be governed by our moral and political principles. No question about that. But I agree. The Constitution, as I read it, says that in times of emergency, when you can't get Congress, an invasion or insurrection, where you don't have time, the president can take military action as commander-in-chief. On the other hand, the framers of our Constitution gave the power to declare war and regulate, create the rules of war to Congress. And if we have time, and look at all the weeks that preceded taking Maduro, and think now all of the strategy to think of all the strategic time now that a year Trump has been talking about Greenland. This is the 1 year anniversary of Trump's second presidency, by the way. Today is the 1 year anniversary. And he's been talking since practically the beginning about Greenland. Under those circumstances, it is, in my view, it is constitutionally mandatory for the president to go to Congress. And if he doesn't think he could get it through the Senate, well, too bad, so sad. That's our constitutional system. Full stop.
Yeah, and again, if people say, well, who cares, right? Then, yeah, you don't really care about the American system of governance. It's, Constitution is only nice when it's like convenient to you, right?
That's
because
not the way constitutions work.
Yeah, but this is what people are, and including Trump, are essentially saying, right? That, the Constitution is only for when it's convenient and whenever it goes against what we like,
yeah. To be fair, Trump is not alone in this.
Sure, in a sense, in many ways,
the whole period since World War II. Before World War II, when we did a real war, Congress declared it. After World War II, we did a war. They called it a conflict at the time in Korea, on the Korean Peninsula. We did a war in Vietnam. We've done wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. So wait, and all of them, while they have been funded and in a way authorized by Congress, sometimes after the fact, it still does. That's not a sufficient bypass, it seems to me, of what the Constitution itself demands. Congress, when American troops are being used abroad and we have time to think it through, we really have to go to Congress and get a declaration of war under our constitutional system. And it doesn't matter whether, Truman liked it, Nixon liked it, or Trump likes it. But I agree, or George W. Bush liked it. The fact is that our Constitution is our Constitution. And when the more we lose strict hold on that, the more frightened I am for the future of my country, truly.
Somebody says using it as negotiation tactic doesn't need Congress. This is not negotiation. Me talking to James and saying, you'll give me $5 for that, or I'll kill you, is not a negotiation. That's a threat of force. Trump is threatening force to an ally. One, he is already violating the Article 1, starting Article 1 of NATO, which says that threatening force to foreign, paraphrasing, but threatening force, threatening war to an ally is a violation of Article 1.
The North Atlantic Treaty is clearly being violated with just this threat. I don't see how you could look at it any other way. And like you say, it's coercive. Frankly, I think the threat of tariffs are coercive. This is not how you deal with this. Now, someone could make an argument, it seems to me, that NATO is, its time is past. With Russia invading Ukraine, I think there's a really big argument that we still need a security agreement between the North Atlantic powers. I mean, Russia is a threat in Europe. And if you can't see that with, your own eyes these days, it's sheer madness. But someone could say, okay, America's getting screwed, with the way it happens. America, though, needs to, these America First people need to really think about what really is in America's interests. America has serious international interests, even on the other side of the world today. In a world of high-speed jet aircraft and intercontinental ballistic missiles, aggressive dictatorships are a threat to America anywhere they happen in the world. And this America First stuff, it doesn't, and they're not even consistent in the application, which shows you that they really don't understand America's national security interests. That's why I was contrasting Iran, for example. Absolutely can't have boots on the ground in Iran, but let's threaten military action in Greenland. Really? Iran, I grant you, but they don't like, the Tucker Carlsons and Candace Owens don't want us to help the poor people of Iran, it seems to me. But the fact of the matter is they scream death to America for the better part of the last 50 years. And how many Americans, hundreds and hundreds of Americans, need to be slaughtered by this regime? How many, frankly, thousands of Israelis need to be slaughtered by this regime before we realize that America's interests are at play? They fund the Houthis that cuts off international trade in the Red Sea. I could go on and on and on. The fact is, America has a direct national security interest in Iran, but they're not willing to do, what it takes in Iran. On the other hand, we're willing to threaten the friendly kingdom of Denmark to get Greenland. That strikes me as insane.
So first somebody says I was talking about constitution and then NATO. Well, first, once Trump invades Greenland, then we are talking about constitution again. Not to mention he already proved several times he doesn't care about the constitution, and specifically in this scenario when it comes to Venezuela, right?
And let me just say, constitutionally, if you have time to threaten, you have time to go to Congress, right? If you can spend, as you point out, months, actually, more than which certainly, but it was, it was getting close that last month. But even if it's just weeks, it clearly shows you had plenty of time to go ask Congress, because it is America's elected representatives in Congress who have been given the power to declare war and regulate war. It's just a simple matter of constitutionalism. You can't, imagine making a threat and then not following it up. For example, in Iran, we really see the drawing of a red line. He is in effect drawing a red line in Greenland as well, isn't he? You can't, that if he doesn't get permission from Congress, if he's not confident in his ability to get it, then again, that will hurt American credibility, hurt deterrence if he isn't legally able to go forward with his threats in Greenland. That's why you don't make the threat in the first place.
Well, with that, let's actually. So first, because I know some people were pointing it out, there is that picture of like Trump in front of leaders of Europe, and behind him is a picture of North America with American flag over America, of course, Canada, Greenland, and Venezuela. This is an AI picture. Now, this specific meeting is real. This happened, I think, a few months ago. I can't remember when exactly it happened, but this meeting actually did happen. I think it was mainly over the Ukrainian issue, but it did happen in the White House. Simply the image behind him was AI, either AI edited or photoshopped. Now,
Yeah, let's
now
be fair
this
to,
yeah, just quickly, this picture has been posted by Donald Trump
yeah,
on his own social media.
he posted it, right? So that's the really strange. Well, and then I think he gave us an idea of, at least his territorial ambitions in theory. What can you say? No, I think it is, to be fair, I think it's concerning when Canada strikes a deal with Xi Jinping, but Trump praises Xi and he wants to deal with the dictator too. But a deeper point, though, is that if he wants the Golden Dome, he'll need Canada and Greenland, perhaps, to help work that out. We don't need it as territory. Canada and Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark generally are strategic allies of the United States. This is something we can work out diplomatically. And when it comes to Venezuela, do note, for example, that he's left the socialist dictator government in power. He's not even, if America wants to take out a dictatorship because it's threatening, okay, and let's put the argument together for that. Hezbollah, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is there, China's there, so America, and they're right across the Caribbean from the United States. So you could make an argument that having a dictatorship right there that's cooperating with other aggressive dictatorships, but what you do then is you do it right. You go to Congress, you get the constitutional authority, and you take out the evil regime altogether. Like at the end of World War II. Now, this would take huge resources and enormous patience, but like World War II, you occupy it until a valid government can be set up there. Trump is doing no such thing. He is doing this A and non-A policy, war and not war policy, take out the dictator and not take out the dictator policy. That just is not the correct approach. And it hurts, really, long-term deterrence when you approach it that way, not to mention the structure and institutions of American government, something for which I was once very proud.
Yeah, and just a reminder on Canada, right? Because when it comes to, yeah, the relationship has soured, and yeah, now Canada is becoming closer with China, which is a scary thing. But I don't. The blame is still on Canada itself. But Trump has to take responsibility. The reason for this is because of Trump. Before the Canadian election, the Conservative Party of Canada was going to win. The opposition, the conservative opposition, was a big fan of Trump. He went into Mar-a-Lago before the election. He wanted to basically go on a crusade together with Trump. Trump put on tariffs on Canada before the election because of the reaction of what is it, Pierre, the Conservative Party leader. Like he lost his own seat. That's how badly were conservatives beat. They were supposed to win hard, and it flipped because the Liberal Party was viewed as the stronger against Trump, as like we will stand up to him instead of the conservative that were viewed as like submitting to Trump. So Trump is the reason for the Liberal Party win in Canada. He could have prevented this. He could have had his Golden Dome easily in Greenland. The reason why there are soured relationship with Denmark is again because of Trump. Like this wasn't a problem until now.
All I can say is that this is dumb. That is by that I mean this is a counterproductive policy that Trump is following. And there's something here connected to following principle. Because Trump does not follow principle, because he is a pragmatist of the crudest kind, and not following principles, he finds himself getting himself into this kind of counterproductive, sort of approach to things. He was the one that alienated Canadians. Now he's busy alienating Europeans from the United States. That's counterproductive. So this brings me back to that letter. If I were a European
Yeah,
letter,
let's read it actually.
If I were a European leader and I got a letter like that from Mr. Trump, I would have to say I couldn't trust him. I mean, it sounds psychologically unhinged. So it would seem to me I can't trust any negotiation with you. I can't make any agree. How do I know you'll even agree with you be true to the agreement we have? You're violating the North American Treaty already with this threat, it seems to me. So how can I trust you at all? Mr. Trump, if you really are willing to do this, then what you do is you withdraw from the North Atlantic Treaty. Now, if I were a European government, I would kind of respond to Trump that way by saying, okay, well, I guess the North Atlantic Treaty is over. I guess our alliance is over. So I would, kick out kick out the U.S. ambassador and talk as little to Mr. Trump as possible because he's kind of unhinged. It would be counterproductive to send such a letter saying, because you all didn't give me a peace prize, I'm less inclined to be peaceful. That's utterly unhinged. I don't care if you're the biggest Trump supporter in the world. He's saying my ego was my fragile little ego is what I'm going to make world security and war and peace decisions based upon. That is utterly crazy. And it seems to me that just like with Canada, it's doomed to be counterproductive.
Yeah, and again, it's like I'm pro-American. I want what is best for America, but Trump doesn't. Trump is the one going against it. And the fact is that, yeah, I don't like the policy of the European states as well. They don't really care about national security of their own countries either. We
No,
are in the terrible state of
yeah,
affairs, but Trump is not bringing anything better towards it. I think there's several ways where you could actually inspire positive change. He is not doing any of that.
it's one thing to ask NATO allies to step up and do more for their own defense. It's quite another to say we're going to use that we might use military action ourselves against a NATO ally. Two very different things. And like I say, you might want to question the whole North Atlantic Treaty Organization, whether it's outlived its time or not. I myself wonder about that when you see Russia actually invading Ukraine. But like I say, because Poland, we were chatting before the show, Hitler and Stalin thought Poland was an important part of their national security. But surely the national security of the West, Poland plays a critical role. Does that mean, Mr. Trump, that the United States should take over Poland? I just don't get it. See, part of it you can't help but think that part of it does boil down to Trump's psychology, his ego, his chest thumping, rather than a truly pro-American interest foreign policy. I absolutely think that America should follow its own interest. I absolutely think European governments haven't sufficiently recognized the situation about world security, especially when you see them like kissing the ass of my phrasing here, kissing the ass of a country like Iran. So yeah, do I have problems with all that? I do. But I don't see this as either principled or productive. And there's a relationship there, ladies and gentlemen. A practical, successful, likely to succeed sort of foreign policy is a principled one, But we'd have to define our principles here. The principles of foreign policy, the principles of war and peace. And I don't think Mr. Trump would recognize such a principle if it bit him in the rear end.
Jonathan sends a super chat. He says 25th Amendment now. And yeah, that's something I've been talking about.
Jonathan, I have, in my lifetime, I've never seen an official communication from a president of the United States to another head of government so completely unhinged.
Now let's actually take a look at that letter. So this is addressed to Norwegian Prime Minister. So it says, Dear Jonas, or I guess it's Norwegian, so Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant. But can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Do you want to comment on this one?
I think I've already indicated my position on this. The man he needs therapy. I mean, he's saying because I didn't get a prize, which, by the way, the head of government of Norway does not make that decision. But because I didn't get a prize, a worthless prize, by the way, maybe less than worthless prize, like the Nobel Peace Prize, that he shouldn't even care about. But because my ego was, damaged, I'm less inclined to be pro-peace in the world. What the hell? Now, the Trump's defenders will say, look, this is part of his, strategy. This is a sophisticated game of playing strategic 4D chess, something like that. In my view, it should and probably will be a counterproductive one. If I was a European head of government, I would have to say to myself, this guy can't be trusted in negotiations. This guy can't be trusted even if we do hammer out an agreement. This guy needs therapy.
Just quickly, somebody thankfully brought this up. He said, what did Obama win Nobel Peace Prize for? And I love it because I'm just going to quote Princess Pride. I don't think you know what that means. I don't think you understand that this makes our argument. The fact that it doesn't mean anything. Obama was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize before his inauguration. That prize is worthless. It doesn't mean anything. It makes the opposite argument that you're trying to make. Because it's worthless, nobody should. I mean, there is not a single prize you should, like, I cannot think of any.
Even if it were. Even if it were some kind of noble thing to get the Nobel Prize, still he shouldn't hinge it on that. That's ridiculous. Because I don't get some prize, let's assume it's they only gave it to truly the best leaders in the world for doing truly heroic things. I still wouldn't use a prize to make the decision. But this prize has devalued itself. They gave it to Yasser Arafat. It's absolutely true. They gave it to Obama for doing nothing except succeeding George Bush, who had started wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. The prize has devalued itself. So it's all the worse, frankly. But a prize, no matter what the nature of the prize, should not be what world peace hinges on.
We have a super chat from Jonathan. Thank you so much. He says, Dr. Peikoff said he thought Miss Rand would refuse the Nobel.
That is the correct approach. If you have any moral sense, like I say, you wouldn't give a crap, or you would actually say, you can take your Nobel Prize and you know what you could do with it. Yeah.
Yeah,
At least not care about it, but realize that it's actually an anti honor. It's a dishonor to be given the Nobel Peace Prize. Correct, Jonathan. But as I say, in any event, even if it were a legitimate and moral thing to get this prize, world peace should not depend on that. One man's fragile ego? Please. I don't see how you could possibly justify this letter, Mr. Trump. It is counterproductive. I would think that any other sane country in the world would think of this guy as less trustworthy, less stable, and that American deterrence is, he's diminishing American deterrent, the threat of American deterrence, in writing such words to an allied country. Trump defenders out there, look, I can understand if you voted for Trump. Really, I can. The argument can be made that you vote for Mr. Trump because Harris would have been much worse. Okay, let's go with that. But Trump supporters out there, I want you all to read this letter and really tell me how you can defend this approach to international diplomacy and matters of world security. America does have the scariest military, most powerful military in the world, and I think that's a good thing. I think America should be armed to the teeth and have the best technology and the best deterrence in the world. But it is dramatically undermined when our head of state acts in this way.
And just a random thing. This has happened actually in Slovakia. We had this prestigious award, and it was given to somebody truly terrible last year. And a bunch of people came and returned their award that they've gotten years, decades ago, because they no longer agreed with it. This is something that happens, and something that can have a certain meaning.
Famous actors won't go to the Academy Awards or will, refuse the Academy Award. If they can do that in Hollywood with the movie business, how much more important is it that we have a clear moral stand? Like I say, in any event, even if it were a distinguished award that only good people got, world peace should not depend on whether the single man gets a prize or not. That is absolutely putting your psychology ahead of America and American interests against the interests of liberty and peace in the world. Surely you can get that, Trump people, right? Even y'all who voted for Trump and support Trump. I mean, I can understand that to a certain degree. What I cannot understand is how you could defend this letter, how you would think it's either practical or moral or sane on a certain level. I mean, really, people, be honest with yourself at least. Tell me, what would you say if Kamala Harris had been elected and she had written a letter like that? How would you react? You would say she's lost her mind. It's counterproductive. It's not the moral approach to foreign policy. Wouldn't you?
We have a super chat from Shosbot. Thank you so much again. He says, should Trump have directives installed in his brain similar to Robocop? What should they be? I think there is only one command that every man should have in his head, and it's to think, if there is to be a commandment.
Yes. If I were to boil my philosophy in general down, it would be think for yourself. Yeah. And that implies certain things. Like putting life at the top of your value hierarchy. And it means that dictatorships are illegitimate. So within broad parameters, my philosophy can guide me a great deal. But as I say, there's really no specific objectivist position here, except to say, surely, that this is immoral, impractical, and indeed unhinged, this letter. I don't see how an objectivist could see this as anything else.
Now, continuing with the letter, it says Trump says, Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China, and why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only that a boat landed there hundreds of years ago, but we had boats landing there also. So, James, yesterday I also read this letter out, and I've said, yeah, this is how property rights work. This is how property rights worked in America as well.
Property rights are not a question of a piece of paper. I will go with you there. property rights. We're talking about property rights, which is very different than international borders, by the way. First of all, you're equating two things that cannot be, totally equated. But in any event, when you're talking about real property rights, individual property rights, it's the people who have developed and used and live on the land who properly own that land. Americans are not in that category. It's the people in Greenland now who live there, develop it, use it. It's their private property. But that is also, as I say, not the same thing as an international border. And when we recognize international borders, each country does, America can't rule the world. Each country has its own jurisdiction. Okay. And we really have to think seriously and selfishly about what is really in America's interests when we talk about invading other countries. And it's not simply a matter of they don't have a property right, so we have every right to militarily take something over. That is, okay, I'm tired of using
and again, when he's
comparisons. It is not rational. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah. When he says a boat landed there 300 years ago, which I would agree, that alone. Well, no, but because the first boats landed there 1,000
years ago.
But that didn't give the people there a right of ownership.
That's
because
right.
they didn't stay there. They moved away, right? They even reached Canada, but they moved away. It's the people who went there and colonized it in the same way during the American expansion, right? During the Manifest Destiny, where American citizens went into the West, built railways, developed the land, and eventually the American state came in and started administering the region in the full way, where it like organized into a state. But it didn't just happen from one thing to the other. It started with mostly empty land. People start moving in, a law starts to be instituted, and eventually it becomes an organized territory and becomes a state. That is exactly how law works and how property rights should work, Mr. Trump. It's not a paper. The property rights are not paper. They are in reality. They are who is actually using and developing this land.
Precisely. That is the only moral basis of private property rights. And yeah, I like the homesteading idea. And there was open land. America had a Homestead Act. You go out there, you develop the land. All you have to do is file a small filing fee, and that land is yours. Because after all, you were the one who, in the famous political philosopher John Locke's words, mixed your labor with the soil. That's what creates valid, moral property rights. And they're only individual property rights, people. There's no such thing as collective ownership. Full stop. And in any case, America has to follow its own interests before it says, we're going to change the national jurisdictions of international borders, which are an entirely different thing.
Continuing with the letter, he says, I have done more for NATO than any other person since its founding. And now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have a complete and total control of Greenland. Thank you, President DJT.
The first time NATO operated outside of Europe, it was in Afghanistan for America. NATO, if NATO itself were not a selfish thing for America to do, we ought not be part of it at all in the first place. The whole thing was America got something out of it. America gets something out of NATO, Mr. Trump. Already. Otherwise, we ought not to be part of NATO at all, it seems to me. And you're just wrong. And going back to connect this with the other issue, there are pieces of paper, questioner, and one of them, as we've said, is the North Atlantic Treaty.
So, and again, I bring this up the example, and you said it, right? The only time Article 5 of NATO, which talks about the collective defense, was to defend America. Now, it hasn't been invoked by America. I think it was invoked by another country on behalf of America.
But it was because America was attacked in 2001. Yeah. And by the way, it was an absolutely stupid response that America did to Afghanistan. Instead, let's say Afghanistan, you want to go take out Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. We didn't. We didn't even do that. We let Al-Qaeda escape at Tora Bora early on But that didn't stop us from continuing to have young Americans and young British soldiers die for the next 20 years. And for what? So we could just give it back to the Taliban? We shouldn't have done a stupid proxy war if we wanted to get, Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan. Because guess what? We let him escape with most of his forces. It was a totally counterproductive policy anyway. But the point is, Europe acted on behalf of America after America got attacked. You make it sound like it's a one-way street, but let's back up further. If the whole history of NATO was not, America didn't get something from that whole arrangement, then we should never have been involved in it in the first place.
We have a super chat from Jonathan. Thank you so much. He says a 2009 agreement permits US to have unlimited troops or bases in Greenland. This is about his fragile ego, not defense.
There's another piece of paper for you. We've had military bases in Greenland. Those came about because we didn't have agreements with the Kingdom of Denmark. That is absurd. Thank you, Jonathan. Another good example.
Somebody says, imagine Turkey fighting to help the US in a war against China. That would be the day. Well, first of all, Turkey should not be in NATO. But let's take other examples. Who do you think fought in Afghanistan? Who do you think fought in Iraq? Who do you think fought in Vietnam? Who do you think fought in South Korea? Now, South Korea wasn't technically NATO. It was the UN. But who do you think fought in there? In Vietnam, you had British, you had Australians. In Iraq, you had British, you had Slovaks, you had Slovak army men fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. Every single country, because Article 5 was triggered after 9/11, every single NATO country helped America. Even the countries that joined NATO after 2001 have helped America in some way, either providing troops, providing logistics, which again, the idea that the only way a NATO country can help America is like sending people like to risk their lives. The fact that American ships can refuel in Spain. There is a port in Spain where American ships can refuel. The fact that, together with UK, Diego Garcia base, the big base, very important base that despite the fact that UK is giving up the island, which is very unfortunate, but we are keeping the base. That Diego Garcia base is an insanely useful, and that's from the UK. That's not from America. The bases America can have in Japan and South Korea to fight against that threat. The bases it can have in Poland, on the Baltics, even Turkey itself. Right? We had nukes in Turkey during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
When we agreed to remove them to calm things down so they wouldn't put nukes in Cuba. But the point is, let me ask a general question of people. If you think there ought to be coordinated security arrangements between the semi-rights respecting peaceful nations, civilized nations of the world, do you think Mr. Trump's approach here helps that or hurts that? Really? Think hard, think for yourself, but tell me if you think that this helps the coordinated security efforts that we've tried to have since World War II to prevent another World War II and the takeover of another the attempted takeover of the world by another Adolf Hitler. If you think that there should be coordinated efforts by the mostly free countries in this world, the truly peace-loving countries in this world that have some respect for the freedom of their own citizens, if you think those countries should coordinate their security efforts, do you honestly think that Mr. Trump's current approach to Greenland helps or hurts that?
And, I would only add, because I've been learning about this, maybe we have some Iraqi veterans in the chat, but if somebody fought in Iraq, if Americans fought in Iraq and they were injured, what hospitals do you think they went into? They didn't go back to America. They went to Germany. Because that was the NATO ally. That was
we have an important military presence in Germany. For a long, we occupied Western Germany after World War II, and then afterwards, to be a bulwark against Soviet expansion, America had a large military presence in Germany. We still have a significant military presence in Germany, and if you're going to have a coordinated security arrangement, we work together. Shouldn't we be all be rowing in the same direction? This seems to me that Trump is getting the oar over here. He threatens the very existence of NATO now. Maybe he wants NATO to be destroyed, but if he does, then let's lay out your reasons, Mr. Trump. But the point is, he's threatening any alliance with our friends in Europe. He's threatening NATO as such, it seems to me. And that seems to me to be, on the face of it, counterproductive and against American interests. Whatever label Trump and his friends put to this, it is not America first in any real sense, except, America chest thumping and the American president's ego when I read this letter. His psychology is what world peace is depending on. And that should send a shiver up everyone's spine.
Yeah, and again, when I say about like how other countries helped the US, I don't mean to make the case that, US is like leeching off the European states when it comes to defense.
No,
Of course,
no.
we do that, when it comes like people have to realize how NATO works. For a new NATO country to join, every single other country has to agree. So this shouldn't be, I don't think NATO should be some altruistic thing where we go save little nations. And actually, I have an experience with that. Slovakia at some point was denied entry into NATO because the way NATO has worked is they usually do it in and Slovakia basically missed the train when Czechia, Poland, and Hungary joined NATO at the same time. Slovakia didn't join yet. So then we had to wait until the next time there was like a big entry. So us, Slovenia, and I think Baltic states all entered together, maybe even including Romania. So it should be a selfish thing.
Free countries should not have alliances with dictatorships. They should meet a minimum standard of our interests and values. Moreover, no country should leech off another. It should be, proportionately and selfishly determined. That is quite a different issue from the behavior we're seeing here over Greenland, to put it mildly.
But again, that like Trump always comes from it from altruistic perspective.
Yes.
I have done so much for you, so now I need something back. Well, no, that's not how relationships work. I'm wondering what his relationship with his wife is if he acts like that. Like the idea that you do something for other person and now they owe you back. That's
Oh, yeah.
Disgusting way to treat
My wife
a
tells a
relationship.
very interesting story about when she was a child and her brother. Her brother gave her a quarter, right, and just gave it as an outright gift. And then a few weeks later, he said, well, now you owe me. That's not how agreements work. That was not a contract. And so you cannot collect a debt or impose an obligation that you did not previously connect to the gift you gave earlier. I mean, that is not moral. A contract, in simple contract law, is something where both sides exchange values. I'll give you this value in exchange for that value. And that's the way international treaties, again, it's not a perfect analogy, but it is analogous. If both sides haven't gotten something from the NATO alliance, well, then there ought not to be a NATO alliance. It has to be a win-win all along. If you say, okay, well, we've been carrying a greater share of the load, well, then we were dumb. We were dumb. We can't then later on make demands and say, because we were dumb and didn't insist on you stepping up more with your defense, now you all owe us something. That is not moral thinking. That's not principled thinking. And it's not practical thinking. I mean, for the same reason it's not moral, it's not practical. It's counterproductive and alienating.
Yeah, and I would say most people that criticize it don't understand what American foreign policy for a long time was. America, I don't think, did the NATO efforts because of altruistic sentiment. It did it to become the leader of the free world. The fact is that American military companies depend on exporting arms. They need to keep profits and to basically sustain the American military industrial complex, which I consider a good thing. It's important to not to mention about for example the deals with Israel, right? America hasn't been didn't get a lot of experience in like modern military war, especially like drone warfare. I'll talk about Ukraine in a second. But they can provide weapons to Israel. Israel can use them in a war, discover their weaknesses, discover their strengths, find improvements, and give that intel to America. When it comes to Ukraine, something, again, that I love to talk about, when it comes to Ukrainian drone warfare, people are talking, what did Ukraine give back? Ukraine has set up a school where people from Western NATO countries can come in to learn about the modern warfare. This is something that is greatly valuable. I mean, I don't know if how much people are like history buffs, but during the American Civil War or during the American Revolutionary War, there were observers from the European states because they were interested in how modern warfare works and were supporting one side or the other because they wanted information. The same thing happened during the Spanish Civil War, where you had the people from Soviet Union and people from Germany and Italy because they wanted to learn how modern warfare works. This is an incredibly valuable information that will save American lives. The fact that you get information about how modern warfare works. And not to mention, to get that experience, America would have to go to war to get that experience otherwise, which generally it's probably not a good idea to start a war just to figure out how a modern war works.
Yeah. We should be, altruism is the enemy here. The philosophy that says self-sacrifice is the noble thing. And America, frankly, in its history of recent warfare, has acted in a fully altruistic way. I totally, I mean, we have to own up to that. I mean, Vietnam War, as Ayn Rand said, was nothing but an altruistic exercise. And mind you, when it's on the world scale, it's an altruistic exercise that slaughters thousands of young people. Okay. And when it came to Afghanistan, 20 years for no real interest. To what? Rebuild Afghanistan, to nation build? No. That is not worth Western lives, much less all the lives that were lost over the better part of 20 years. That is sheer altruism and self-sacrifice. So the principle has to be you do not engage in security arrangements unless it's a win-win selfish arrangement. And our arrangement with Israel, frankly, has been one area where America has had a win-win relationship with a country. Our support of Israel since Israel came under attack in the late 1960s has been something that has protected American interests as well as Israeli interests. And I don't want to be part of any deal that isn't a selfish win-win.
Yeah, so absolutely. Like, I think sadly, America has been I think the big thing that is happening is and I cannot talk to my friend about it, is like people are used to living in a free country and they assume that things like you can save money in your bank, you can say whatever you want, you can criticize your government, you can go out and protest. I think people think that this is a fact of life that is true whatever happens. People have always lived in a world where America is a number one power, where America is the one guaranteeing the international trade. America is the one deciding and having a great say in what happens in the world. And I don't think people realize what a world before that was, or what a world
Boy,
without having this superpower, without
boy, is
having.
that true. The Enlightenment gave us a whole new set of ideas about how morally governments should behave. America itself is the product of those Enlightenment ideas. And if we enjoy the economic prosperity of a system that has private property, if we enjoy free speech and the ability to protest our government in a peaceful way that doesn't violate other people's rights, I think those things are crucial. Free speech and a right to peaceably assemble, for example, are crucial rights. And America has been the voice and the lantern guiding the way. If we appreciate that, we should appreciate the important role of America. It's, however, very tragic and sad when the President of the United States doesn't seem to understand those principles and the crucial principles involved there, and what makes America great and special, and how much the world has benefited from America's economic and military power. Um, that is what I would say here right now in this context. We're talking about Greenland. Don't undermine all that, Mr. Trump. The world today is better than it ever was in human history, and there's a reason for that. And you are right now undermining the reason for that.
Well, with that, James, do you have any last thoughts, and where can people find you?
Well, Usually you can find me right here at the Ayn Rand Center UK, where you will hear a voice that in international affairs and all kinds of other things that you won't hear anywhere else. And if you're interested in the ideas that you hear here and our attempts to apply those ideas to current events, then I would urge you to become a paid member of the Ayn Rand Center UK. Every Sunday, we are discussing an important book on objectivism, Dr. Leonard Peikoff, who wrote the definitive treatise on the philosophy of objectivism, in my view. And we're doing an in-depth study of that every Sunday, but only for members. So, and it's a modest price I think, to get a valuable discussion, if I do say so myself, on the ideas of objectivism, the ideas that should govern individual lives and choices, but also should guide the principles of foreign policy and war and peace. And those are, my life is really very important to me. But there's also the question of the world in which I live. And that can involve the lives of thousands and thousands of others.
And with that, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Damned Dan. And we will be back tomorrow. There is no Atlas Shrugged book club today. And also we are moving the Atlas Shrugged book club. So it usually happens on Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. UK time. We will be moving it to Monday, 7:30 p.m. UK time.
That actually is the first complete and most definitive statement, but it's a novel. So I'd rank Atlas Shrugged. Okay, yeah, I may have to qualify what I just said there, but yes, I mean, think of the stuff you get if you belong to Ayn Rand Center UK, an analysis of the important philosophy that could save your life and save the world.
And with that, we will be back tomorrow with another episode of the Daily Objective. Until then, thank you, James, for joining me today. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and bye-bye.
Be safe.